You're listening to the Chopped Podcast, episode number 100. Hey everyone, here we are. We are at episode 100 of the Chopped Podcast. I'm so excited. 100. That's really, really exciting. So to make this episode even extra special, I am introducing a new series and we're calling it Blog Talk. I've asked Trevor Depth, he's of the site The Blog Village, to join me today. And he and his wife Jennifer Depth, they run the site Show Me the Yummy. I know you've heard of it. It's a really popular blog. I love it. It's got a lot of great photographs and video and everything. So hey Trevor, welcome to the podcast.
Hello, 100.
Hello, 100.
Gosh. I'm on the 100th episode. This is crazy.
I know. There should be like confetti falling from the air or something, don't you think?
There's not in your room. There is here.
Oh, I guess I special ordered that for you.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate it. Congratulations. That's a huge, huge milestone.
Thanks. It's pretty exciting. Isn't there like this trend where you're keeping it 100? It's kind of like keeping it real.
Yeah. You can like syndicate now, right? Or is that just television?
I think
Might
that
be
is
television,
just.
but you should.
I'm totally syndicating. Absolutely.
You should be syndicated.
I love it.
You're global.
So, the idea of Blog Talk is that, here's the thing. There's a lot to blogging, and I think we could kind of get into some of that. I don't know. Do you want to describe what your thoughts are on Blog Talk?
Absolutely. So, Marley and I talked, and Blog Talk is just our chance to answer questions that we know that food bloggers have, and a look at the behind the scenes of blogging, because I think as everybody knows, food blogging at its core can seem simple. It's everyone's doing following their passion.
Yeah.
And there are so many moving parts, though, that this is a chance for us to talk about some of those moving parts and how things are constantly shifting with new services and algorithms, and just help make some sense, I guess, out of that whole blogging world.
I love it. And you're so right, because there are so many questions. I mean, I feel like on any given day I get 1,000 of them, but I'm just so glad to have you on the show, Trevor, because you launched the Blog Village. It's a membership site. I've been behind the scenes in there. I've seen it. There's a lot of good information, and you share so much great stuff behind the scenes. And so I also know that also helps you stay in touch with what are the kind of questions that people are asking about, how to do this thing called blogging. So I think it's going to be great having you on this with me.
This is going to be awesome. This is just going to send you into the next 100 episodes. Yeah. I feel it.
I feel it too. And so our goal is to do Blog Talk on a regular basis, especially if it's connecting with people and providing value. That's our number one goal. And so Trevor, can you describe how we arrived at today's questions?
Yeah, so today for episode numero uno of Blog Talk, we just sort of looked in all of the different places that we browse around. So Facebook groups, in the Blog Village, Marley's on the Chopped Facebook group, and looked at what are things that we see as recurring themes that people are asking that they want to know, and we tried to kind of come up with a nice first set of questions that we're hoping will be supplemented by you guys hopping online and asking some things that you're wondering about too.
I love that. In fact, I think, for future episodes, I really encourage people to reach out to us, and we'll give information here at the end on how they can reach out to us with their own questions.
It's like sitting here talking with us.
Yes, exactly. Be a part of the conversation. I love it. Be a part of
the conversation.
Yes. So what do you think? Shall we get started?
Let's do it.
Okay, let's do it. Okay, so the very first question we have is, I'd love to know more about updating old content. What happens on Pinterest if I remove a photo or replace it with a new one? That is a great question, don't you think, Trevor?
Yeah, great question. Can be really confusing.
Yes, absolutely. Because, the last thing you want to do is I can imagine you're already worried about updating old content and getting like a 404 redirect on your site, but you certainly don't want links from other sites coming to a bad place either. So
right.
We should probably go over a couple of different things on that one. But first of all, The thing I like to think about on Pinterest is when I have a photo and I put it on Pinterest, I usually include the link. Obviously that happens kind of automatically. So I have a coconut cake recipe, by the way. That will be a great example. We updated the photos on that one and updated that post. I went actually, just to make sure I was right on this, I went and looked at the old picture that is still on Pinterest and clicked on that link, and that link is still, going to the content that's on my site.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that the thing, probably the technical thing to understand is that when someone pins something on Pinterest, Pinterest is not pointing to your site to see that image. So Pinterest has that image now in their cloud that they're serving to people. That way, if, let's say, your website went down, suddenly all your images aren't disappearing from Pinterest.
Right.
So Pinterest needs to control those. And so, yeah, they definitely can still get directed to your page. I think the thing that we see people talk about is indicating to people arriving at your site from maybe a different image than you have now and giving them some sort of disclosure so they're not confused when they don't see maybe the image that they clicked on. Do you guys do that?
No, tell me about that.
So just, I see this, what was the recipe?
Coconut cake.
They say this coconut cake, which I'm sure is amazing.
Yes, how could you forget that?
I know. And it's got maybe a blue background. All the pictures are blue background. And I click in, and then I get to your page, and it's all your updated images with red backgrounds, and they look totally different. And they're like, oh, this isn't what I clicked on. Especially if you're like us, and maybe your first few photo shoots were not the prettiest thing in the world.
Oh no, mine were perfect the whole time.
That is so convenient for you.
I know, isn't it?
So, that's where maybe to put some sort of indication that you've updated the photos. I know that I've seen some people say, post updated photos this date, something like that.
Yeah, I usually at the very end of the post, I'll leave like one of the old photos, and I'll say, we're updating our photos, and this was updated on this date or something like that. Is that what you mean?
Yeah, something that bridges that gap, so it's not completely confusing. Yeah.
That is a great idea and an important detail to think about. Now, what about if somebody has the date in their post and they republish? Does that change the date on the link itself?
So this is a big one, and a lot of people have this question. So if you, when you set your blog up, didn't change the permalink URL, which means that you have your blog name, and then every post has something like /10/2016/ and then the post name. So you have those dates in there.
Yes.
That's where you can run into a lot of difficulty if you change the date to, let's say, today, because that will change that URL. So in that case, that pin would actually be pointing to a page that no longer exists at that exact URL, which is that redirect issue that you brought up. Yes,
I got you. So if your permalink says coconut cake / or maybe there's not a / I don't know, but 10/26/15, that's a sign that your permalink includes the date that it was published.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yep. And that's when you want to be really careful to not change the post date when you're updating those photos. Just update the photos. If you really do want to change the date, it's just going to be something that you're going to have to redirect. You're going to have to install a plugin that redirects that URL, the old URL, to the new URL, but that can also have SEO impacts because Google doesn't love to see redirects. They like pure links that have always existed in their search engine.
Yes, so that's a big topic to get into. You were at Chopped Conference, and Amber Bracegirdle was there talking about SEO, and one of the things she mentioned is that when you're updating old content, you don't necessarily have to republish it, because
absolutely not.
Just getting it back into the mix of social media sharing is a way of kind of reviving it in Google's eyes too. So resharing it to Pinterest. Yes, you agree?
Yeah, okay, resharing it at Google Plus is one that obviously Google knows about immediately. You can also go into Search Console, which is the old Webmaster Tools, and you can actually resubmit a URL directly to Google to say, hey, something's new, I want you to check this out. And that can expedite the process a little bit.
Yes. What is that called? I remember that.
It's Google Search Console, and you can go to it in... I'll have to look it up, but it's crawl something. I can pull it up while we kind of move on.
Yeah.
And it's not crawl though. It's you can submit your URL directly.
Right. Yes, I've done that before at certain times. But yes, so the nice thing about, the question is really about updating old content and how that affects Pinterest. So the first thing we can say is that there's no problem with Pinterest when you update those photos. You don't have to worry about the photos on Pinterest now not linking to your site.
Exactly.
Like you said, that photo is uploaded to Pinterest and then the link is still there.
Yep.
But the thing you want to be careful about is when you got some new photos on that coconut cake, then get in there and share it in the group boards that you're in and share it. That's what I do is I try to have a nice little sharing schedule that I put my content on. So I think that really is helpful. And I think I'm hearing you say also make sure you share it to Google Plus.
Yeah, Google Plus is always good because they that helps Google pick it up. And then if you go into Search Console, it's actually located under crawl and fetch as Google. And you can type your post URL in there, click fetch, and then submit it to the index. And they usually do a pretty good job of picking that up quickly.
Yeah, that's great. Oh, wonderful. Yeah. I think we covered that question. What do you think? Anything else to add?
I think we killed it.
I think more confetti falls from the sky. Yeah. Okay, our next question. You wanna take us on that one?
Sure. All right. So, this is a divisive question. So I'll be interested to see where this goes.
Okay.
Should I do posts if there is only product for payment, or should I only do posts when I get paid?
Ooh, that's a tough one. This is controversial, isn't it?
It's controversial. I know that there are a lot of people who have some pretty strong feelings on it. What camp are you in?
Well, before I answer that, let me just describe what I think the two camps are, because there are some people who are like this. Their point of view is if you accept product and in exchange for what we would call, air quote sponsored post, you are hurting the industry of food blogging. You are damaging not just yourself, but everybody around you is suffering because you are accepting product. You're lowering the quality of everybody. That's the kind of this one side. And on the other side is, obviously accepting free product in exchange for a post or a review or things like that can be a way of developing a relationship with a brand. And so a lot of people will do it, especially when somebody is new and starting out in food blogging. It's a really good way of getting in contact with that brand. I personally, so now you asked my opinion, so let me go to that. My opinion is that I feel like if you want to accept free product, I think that's your prerogative. I really do. I really feel that way. Did I go?
That's it. You're solid on that. No, yeah, that's I think you're right. I think it's a complicated question. I think that it absolutely depends on how long you've been blogging, what stage you're at in your blogging journey, if you are blogging for month and what your goals are also with blogging. Now, yeah, I think that, because I can speak from our experience when we first started blogging and a chip company sent us some free chips. That was, we've made it. Yes. This is it. It's happened. I'm talking 8 bags, not just 2, 8 bags of chips.
That's a lot of chips.
There's some monetary.
Were they different flavors? Or they all the same?
Oh, they were different. It was an assorted pack.
Nice.
It was an assorted pack. So, and I think that was actually a really important part of our development because it allowed us to start practicing really with brands. And honestly, at that point, we were tiny. We didn't have tons of traffic. They weren't going to get as a brand that much out of the relationship other than perhaps getting our name out there and obviously hoping that, someday 8 years down the road that that post starts doing well and they get, a lot of traffic for it. So, but for us, it was practice. It was learning. What is it like to work with brands? What is it like to work with a PR agency? What is it like to work with an influencer network and go through the hoops that you have to with that. So I think that's totally okay.
Yeah.
I do feel that you should, as soon as possible, and based on your experience, I do think it's good to start valuing yourself and start charging. And I don't think someone that's getting 1 million page views should probably work with a brand for some bags of chips because that's where I see that the more potential for that brand to then be expecting that from other larger sized blogs of people who are maybe doing it as their full-time job. That I think it can be more damaging, I think, just to the bottom line of, where those payments come in. But it also depends on the company. I mean, some companies just don't have, they're new companies and they don't have a $50,000 budget to hire 30 influencers. So it's going to depend on the company. If it's a gigantic corporation, they're just like, oh, it's tough, we just don't have a budget. Well, that's probably not that true,
Right.
So there's so many, it's shades of gray. It's not black and white, I don't think. So I think you got to take each situation into account.
I also feel like you can kind of tweak the arrangement a little bit too. So for example, if there's a brand you really want to work with and they don't have a budget, like you say, maybe they're going to have a budget in the future. And right now, what you could do is, like, I have done this where I'm going to be reviewing veggie burgers, and I have this page on my site, and it's my favorite veggie burgers. And if somebody wants to send me a coupon for some free product or some free veggie burgers, and I want to try that out, and I could, if I like the product, I'd be happy to add that to that page or something. There's, I just think there's some ideas of things like that you could kind of work around without actually having to do a post.
Absolutely. That's awesome. And then another thought is if somebody doesn't have a budget, and especially when you're early on and growing, I would say, well, you don't have a budget, but why don't you feature me on your Instagram? Maybe if they have, you're at 300 Instagram followers and they've got 15,000 because they're still pretty new, but that's still a lot more than you have. And, get some traction from their social media. And have them support you that way.
Get something out of the deal.
Get something out of the deal. And, and maybe not your first or second, but, you probably shouldn't be 30 sponsored posts in and not charging anything.
I think, Trevor, what I like about this too is I actually have an interview coming up with a woman who's an expert on negotiation. And she talks about the importance of practicing negotiation. She even says, even going to a garage sale is practicing. And so this could be a really good way of kind of dipping your toe into and getting more confident at negotiating.
Well, and I also think that, it's one of those things that once you do start charging, because that's going to feel a little weird.
Yes.
Know that sometimes when people don't say they say there's not a budget, they're practicing the negotiation side on their side. And sometimes you just say, oh, okay, yep, sorry, we don't do that. And I can't tell you how many times people have contacted us to give us product and we say, here's our rates. And they say, we don't really have a budget. We say, okay, well, I hope we can work together in the future. And they're like, actually, let's do it. And suddenly, magically money appears. So, you got to realize that they're also trying to spend as little of their ad dollars to get as much as possible at the same time.
Yes, exactly. Okay, so that's really good. Here's the positive side of it is brands are finding you interesting enough that they're wanting to send product to your way. So,
yes.
There's some pros and cons to that, right?
Yeah, well, and you're doing something right because people are finding you, that's a great thing.
Yeah, that is another great thing. Okay, good. I like that. So, I feel like people have to kind of trust their gut on this one, but I agree with you. I think it's all dependent on where you are on the page view spectrum, where you are on all of these kinds of, that's the hard thing about food blogging, don't you think, is there's not like just one metric. There's a lot of things going on.
It is. It's very complex. And just one other thing that what you just said reminded me of is I would say if you're not yet charging, don't get into any long-term relationships with a brand. I would not suggest signing up for those year-long ambassadorships for just product because that happened to us.
Really?
And we signed up for it when we had no traffic. We were just like, sweet, we get some free product. This is amazing. Yeah. But then once we were charging and significantly higher, we were still stuck here doing these free posts because we had signed up for it. And so I would not recommend signing a long-term agreement with a brand just for product ever.
That leads really well into our next question, which is, what should I make sure is in a contract? And so I think that's really good. I think signing something that's long-term, you really want to spend a lot of time looking at that contract and making sure that your bases are covered.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
The longer you're going to spend on the project, the longer you should be spending looking at the contract for the project.
I like that. That's a good metric. Yes.
Yeah. If it's one post and things go wrong and it's kind of a huge pain, it's not going to be the end of the world. But if you're dealing with it every day for the next year, you're going to be angry at yourself.
Yeah. So let's just get it out there. Do you have a lawyer look at your contracts?
So we don't. I'm pretty familiar. I mean, I've dealt with a lot of contracts in the last 20 years. So I'm pretty comfortable looking at them. And for me, and again, this is going to be personal to everybody and what your comfort level is with legalese.
Yes.
Until we're talking about some pretty high dollar contracts, I'm fairly confident that at least the main bases are covered.
Here's what I did, Trevor. I'm in the same boat as you. I had reviewed a lot of contracts in my corporate job. Mm-hmm. But then when I switched over to food blogging, I did hire an attorney just for the first several, just to kind of get, because it was different kinds of, yes, exactly. Just so I would know what kind of things to look for, like ownership of photography and things like that. Mm-hmm. Didn't really, and exclusivity was another thing that was kind of different. So for me, having an attorney for those first couple was really important.
Well, so maybe point out, what are some of the really important aspects that you make sure are in each contract outside of the standard, the standard stuff that you're going to find?
How much of the moolah?
Right. Yeah.
No, I definitely like to look at the exclusivity, and that basically means, like, if I am working with brand A, oftentimes they're going to have some statement that says I can't work with brand B for how long? Is it a year? Is it 6 months? Is it 2 months? I mean, to me, that's really important, because I want to know how long what if brand B comes to me next week and they offer me a better deal? How long do I have to wait?
Yep. I think that's awesome.
So that one's an important one for me. I really look at that one closely. What about you? Is there some thing that you look at quickly?
Yeah, because we've had, some learning experiences just with things that we didn't even think to put in the contract, which probably goes to your point. Is probably a really good one when you're starting. But things like have defined what your reshoot policy is, because while it rarely ever comes up, it's only happened to us once, and we've done quite a bit of brand work. How does that get handled, and what constitutes a reshoot? Those are both two independent and very specific things. What is the monetary compensation for your time and effort to do an additional shoot of that recipe? But then also, how is that defined? We, for example, explicitly say if it's a reshoot, I can't remember exactly what the language is, but it's a reshoot if we have not done something that was explicitly called out in the contract, something that was explicitly requested as a deliverable in the photos. If that's not listed, it's a reshoot.
And I'd like to clarify, because I know everybody is thinking right now, like, why in the world would you ever have to do a reshoot? Because Jennifer's photos are so gorgeous. But it doesn't necessarily mean they're not happy with the look of the photos, right?
Right. Yeah, it can be. There are many things. And things like, we wanted a horizontal shot that had the product and some space for copy, for example. Right. And maybe that wasn't in there, and we didn't have a shot like that because it wasn't requested. That's something that you want to let them know, we're happy to do that. I always try and keep it very positive, but that'll be, X amount for the reshoot, like is stipulated in the contract, because that wasn't requested at the time we signed it.
And so your point is, if you don't have that, what do you call that, a reshoot clause kind of thing, then you really don't feel comfortable going back and saying, well, now we're going to, because first of all, you're going to have to make the recipe again. You're going to have to restage
Grocery store. Yeah. Yes. And it's that uncomfortability of, well, we didn't talk about it, so now we have to ask for money, and it's someone who you're usually trying to have a good relationship with, and you don't want it to get weird. And so, honestly, we probably could have requested payment, but I sort of like to take responsibility for mistakes that we make in terms of, we should have had that in the contract and we didn't. So I guess let's do it, and now we'll add it here forward. And I will say that nearly all contracts that we receive from a brand or a PR agency never have anything about paying for a reshoot. That's a clause that we get added nearly every time.
Yeah.
Yep. So that's a big one. Just like you said, though, the end date, sometimes it'll say, as long as this contract is in effect. And I always make sure there's a date in which it ends, and when is that contract completed, because otherwise there's sort of this hanging ambiguity of when did the contract end or when does it. So especially for things like exclusivity,
Yes.
that's important to have in there. The scope very clearly indicate everything that you're going to do, how many social shares. I don't ever let it just say social shares. It's one social share to each of the following, each of our social networks. It's anything that's just ambiguous that doesn't indicate exactly how much of something you're going to do.
No fuzziness.
No fuzziness. It really has. That's the whole point of the contract. And typically, they're long sometimes. The shorter the contract, the better. Because then it's just easier. But sometimes you'll get these 7-page contracts that.
Well, the thing I like about that too is if you have a very specific agreement like that, then you can over deliver.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
Maybe you're going to share it to Instagram twice and they're going to get, it was only in the contract for once, and that just gives them, something else to be happy about.
Mm-hmm. And just knowing that if it's something that wasn't in the contract, then you need to be comfortable saying, especially if it's going to take you time, that there's an additional cost to that.
Right.
That comes up quite a bit.
Now, we're talking mostly about contracts that involve photography. I know there's more complications when there's video involved, right?
I mean, in what way?
Well, for example, like what kind of pots and pans are used. I mean, oftentimes a video is showing some kind of cooking instruction, and are they okay with your regular pots and pans, or do they, do they want actually nice looking pots and pans or whatever?
Well, sure. I mean, I guess that goes to the quality question, which I think, especially with video, I'm actually glad you brought that up. I think with video, it's just becoming something where there needs to be some way of indicating the expectation of quality. Because I've heard that some people are starting to get videos that maybe, they're happy that they're just making a video, but the brand is expecting a higher production quality.
Yes.
And so I think that we haven't run into that, but that could definitely be something that people are going to start running into.
Oh, yeah. The level of expectations that could be on one end and on the other. Oh, wow. That really does set up for problems.
Well, and especially when you're doing your first, that's why I think it's not a great idea for your first video or videos to be a sponsored video unless you have some kind of experience with it, because there's a lot of question marks, and the last thing you want to do is have somebody unhappy. And, that might even mean saying, oh, you know what, we'll do the video for this one for no additional charge, because honestly, you don't even know what it's going to look like. And if there's no charge for them, then they're not really they can't really be displeased with it. But hopefully you've just been making videos for your own recipes and not just jumping into a sponsored post. I would not recommend doing
that. Way you could point to a link, right? You could say, we are going to make a video of a similar quality to the one at this link.
Absolutely. We have that's sort of I think the old PDF media kit is slowly becoming antiquated because you do need to show video. It's a difficult thing to embed in a PDF. Yeah, exactly. So either have a link to something, or even better, get your media kit on your site somewhere as an actual web page that the brand can then see examples, so they know what they're expecting.
And you publish that as a private page, is that right?
Yeah, I mean, we don't password protect it. We just don't. It's not linked to on our blog. It's not advertised. So when brands contact us, we just give them that link.
Ah, perfect. That's really good. I love it. That's like a little side bonus right there.
Yeah. And then brands really like that too, because it's easier for everybody to know exactly what's coming, what they're expecting, and what they're going to get. Yeah, very good. Yeah. Okay, anything else on that one, or you want to move on to the next one? I mean, those are the big ones. I mean, the standard things about rights and usage, where's it going to be used, and make sure you maintain the copyright. And all of these things, I guess, are negotiable, but obviously some things you need to decide what they're worth to you and charge more for them. And payment actually is one big one that we've been burned before. We always make sure that we indicate that if there are any fees associated with however we're paid, that the sponsor's responsible for those. Because we had one brand that paid us, they wanted to pay us via a PayPal invoice, and PayPal takes a percentage of that transaction. And so we were losing 5% on that transaction. Yeah. It ended up being something like $75. And, for us, we're like, well, sorry, but You need to pay us the $75. And then they invoiced us for the $75. So then we lost a percentage. And it was just like, at that point, it was like, all right, this is just, we'll just leave it at this. It's fine.
It's like that movie where they go into different levels of the dream with Inception. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. But I mean, just as that should be clearly how the payment's going to happen, when it's going to happen, what the expectations are around that.
I think that's so important. Like I come from I've done some consulting work outside of food blogging, and we obviously get a payment up front.
It is, yeah. I mean, we do a lot of the times. Actually, we do half up front and half on the back end.
Yes.
It depends on the job. You know, the what the project is and how long it is, and if it's multiple posts. But a lot of times we do half up front and then half when it's completed, and that's pretty standard.
Oh, that's smart
for contractors with companies. It's not something that their billing department's going to
freak out about it.
Yeah.
I like the language that you just used there, as if you change the relationship in your mind from this influencer working with a brand to a contract. This is like a contract worker.
Yeah, you are. Absolutely. And so treat it as such.
Yes.
Yeah.
I love it. Okay, so our next question is, I've been blogging a while. How much should I continue to post? That's a loaded one, huh?
That is loaded. And yeah, that's a tough one. Do you want to start or should I take this one?
I'm happy to give a start on that one because I've had my blog going for a while. And so I have a lot of old content. And to me, I think, I don't know that I can actually answer the question about how much you should be posting today. I think there's a lot of things that kind of point towards having new, fresh content on your site regularly can help with your traffic. But that said, that doesn't mean that your old content can't be republished in a way that helps to build that up as well. So we've kind of been going through a process of going through our old content and reshooting some of the photos and then just kind of refreshing. We don't have the date in our URL, so it's easy for us just to, republish that content. And I think it's been really helpful for us.
Yeah, that's great.
What are your thoughts, Trevor?
So, I actually just read a really interesting article, and I wish I had noted down where it was, but they did an experiment where they stopped blogging for 10 months, something like that, and then watched what the effects were on their Google Analytics.
Uh-huh.
And I think it was, it was not an immediate drop or anything like that, but over the course of that 10 months, traffic dropped something like 20 or 30%. So there definitely is an impact to not having that fresh content because Google likes to see new content coming from a site. Now, that said, that was a total hard stop that they did.
Yes.
I think as long as you're posting, especially after, you've been blogging, you have a lot of content. I think that as long as you're doing something regularly, if that's once a week, I think that's great to at least get something out there once a week. And then, sure, if you're posting 7 times a week, that's just going to mean, that's better. If it's all good content and you're able to do that schedule, or you're working with multiple other bloggers on your site, then, that's great. But, I like to think that once a week is a good general thing to at least be doing.
Yes.
And I think most people do that.
Right.
But I also think if you want to take 3 weeks off, your traffic's probably not going to take a hit at all, and you can come back and do whatever. Or, even if you probably took 2 months off, it's probably not going to be the end of the world. Your site's not going to die because things come up, life comes up, right?
Right.
Maybe you have a kid and you're blogging and that's your full-time thing. You're like, I'm going to take 2 months off. I think that's totally fine.
Especially if that happens to occur over the summer when the traffic is going down anyway.
Yep. Sure. Yeah, especially for food bloggers in the summer. I think that's a lot of people do that. I feel like they at least ease up on their posting schedule, and that's a good time to do it.
Yeah.
If you're looking for some time.
If you have advertisers on your site, though, I think you have to be careful about, like if you're a part of an advertising network, like mine requires, I want to say 4 posts a month.
Oh, interesting.
I think you should probably look at that and make sure you're at least doing, what's required of your of your advertising network.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Yeah, make sure you're not violating any agreements that you have.
But even they would actually, I just interviewed somebody recently who talked about they took the summer off, and she actually pointed out to brands that reached out to her, this is what I did, and they were all very supportive of the fact that she took time to be with her family. And so I think that's kind of cool movement going on with brands right now.
I mean, I guess the other thing that I think about, it's like the whole reason that people are blogging is to have control over their destiny and to be running your own business, really. And because you're putting all that hard work in, don't let it turn into the corporate rat race just in your living room.
Right.
I mean, if you need time, take time.
Right.
I think that's healthy.
I think we're both reading the subtext of this question, which is, I've been blogging a while. How much should I continue to post? It's almost like saying, I'm not, my passion is kind of waning for this a little bit. And I think you're right. Maybe taking a few weeks off can kind of help you determine, am I done with this, or am I?
There's the burnout factor.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I think there's lots of companies send people on a sabbatical after they've been working because they know how hard they've been working. And I mean, for those people who have a blog, or whether you're starting or you've been blogging, you know how much work it is. And there's a burnout factor to that. So take care of yourself.
I often think of like TV series or whatever, like they have a series, right? Like
hiatus.
They take breaks.
They take the hiatus. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. In between seasons.
Yeah.
I think that's great.
I think so too. So there are certain.
We'll start doing that.
You're going to take a hiatus every now and then?
Yes. Yeah. After we get off.
Once we're done with this recording, you're going to go get a margarita and take a hiatus.
Yes.
I love it. Okay, so we have the last two questions are kind of connected. Do you want to dig into those, Trevor?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, this is a question, and questions I guess that come up a lot when, especially for everybody who's maybe listening, who's about to start a blog or who wants to start a blog or has started designing and getting posts ready. So the question is, how many posts should I create before I make my blog public? That's the first part.
Yes.
What do you think? What's your opinion on this one?
I really think you should have, I don't know if I could say I have a specific number in mind.
We need a number.
If I had to pick a number, I would say 20. And that's probably a little
20.
too much. 20, that's too much. Maybe 10.
Okay.
I'm trying to be controversial here, Trevor.
You're going to be, because I disagree.
Okay. All right. This is getting good. What do you think?
No, here's my thing. I think that the number one thing that can prevent anyone from starting their blog or launching any kind of business is that analysis paralysis of everything you have to do before you do it.
Yes.
So I tend to be more on I think that everyone is too concerned with how many people are going to see their blog when they launch it, as if, and wouldn't it be nice, you're going to publish your blog and suddenly the traffic of the world is going to start pouring into your blog. And gosh, if it's not perfect, when in reality, I mean, everyone who's started their blog knows that, if you have Google Analytics installed, which you should do, right, as you're starting your blog, and, you're watching that real-time analytics and it's one, which is you with your tab open of your site. And then it's like 2, mom just got the email, and it's like, so it's not going to make a difference if you don't have everything in place. Now, I asked Jennifer before we started this, what her thoughts on it. She thinks, because when we launched, she had 3 posts ready, and that was so that she didn't panic on day 1 that she had to get another recipe going. So
yes.
I mean, I'm down with that. I get that, have something that you can post the next day.
Yes.
But I think that all the things that we create in our head, like if you don't post on a perfect schedule right when you start, then bad things are going to happen, or all of these things don't exist. It's more important that you just start your blog and start iterating it day by day. And you don't need to tell everybody about it right when you launch it. Get it live though. Get it up. Have friends who will give you some feedback. Get on there and just pull the trigger instead of waiting.
Okay, so you have persuaded me, but not all the way.
Are you changing your answer?
I'm in Jennifer's boat. I think I like the idea of having 3 because here's why. If you hit the publish on the first post and you don't have the other 2 ready, I could see where you could kind of get discouraged.
Stress. Sure, yeah.
Yes, and maybe you are clicking refresh on page views and nothing's happening, and you might think, what am I doing this for? But if you have if you have 2 or 3 already prepared, you're already on a publishing schedule. You're just going to make it happen.
Yeah, I think that 3 is a good number. That's not overwhelming.
Yes.
You can make that happen very easily, and it doesn't give you as many excuses to wait.
Right.
To just start your blog. Just do it. You'll be so happy once you just make it happen that you did it. And then it's just figuring stuff out from there.
I like that. And I actually, just hearing you talk reminded me, I recently heard, do you know who Seth Godin is?
Yeah.
Yeah, he's that marketing guru and has his blog on, I don't know, Blogspot or something like that. And he talked about, TypePad, isn't it TypePad? That's where it's some, old platform. But anyway, he talked about, your goal in what you're doing. He actually recommends everybody should post every day. And his point is, if you're posting every day, then as you're going through your day, you're thinking about what you're going to be writing tomorrow. And that's, it can be a very helpful thing to do. But anyway, his point was you should leave a trail of your work that makes you proud. And I loved that comment because I think if we focus on that more so than, do I have 3 posts ready, or, if I just make sure that you're creating posts that make you feel proud.
Yes,
this
absolutely.
is your space.
I think Seth doesn't have to make a recipe every day.
No.
So that's
You're right.
So that's scary to me. But
Seth is sometimes writing 20 words. I mean, his posts are very small.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Isn't that convenient?
Yes, Seth. Thank you.
But yeah, I mean, I think it's important to just get out there, get out of the gates.
I like it.
And then I guess the second part of that was, as you're maybe developing your site and everything, a question that comes up is, well, how do you put like a coming soon page to your blog so it doesn't have that, wherever you're blogged, it'll be like, this domain is parked at, which, maybe you don't want that. And this is actually really easy. This is just it's a plugin for WordPress if you're using WordPress, called the Ultimate Coming Soon page. You can search for it on WordPress, Ultimate Coming Soon page. I've never used it, but I know people who have, and it just essentially just puts a page on the landing page of your blog that doesn't show anything else you've done. It's just a picture and says, coming soon.
Awesome.
So that one's pretty easy.
I could see even having that content for a page that you're building, like, maybe you're adding a new resources page for, I don't know, how to make marshmallows or something. I don't know. If you had a page that you're going to be adding. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not sure if you can pick, I'm not super familiar with the plugin. I'm not sure if you can pick different pages for it to show up on. I would assume you probably can.
Yeah.
But I know that's a good one.
But, people could just kind of ignore that plugin and just listen to your advice and just put it out there, right?
Just put it out there. Really, exactly. Just do it because,
yeah,
you're just, I'm guilty of it too. I don't want to sound like I'm so good at this. I do the exact same thing. I will come up with every tiny thing that I need to do before. And then finally I'm like, you know what? No, I just need to do it. And it feels so much better 100% of the time when I just it's jumping into the water, right?
Yeah.
It's not as cold as you think. You just got to jump in.
I think that's so true. And speaking of which, I think we might have covered it. What do you think? Any parting thoughts on today's questions?
I think it was an awesome episode 100. I'll leave it to the listeners to leave some feedback, rate the podcast 5 stars, obviously, and send some questions in. Send some questions. I want to, more controversial the better, and anything that people are wondering about. I
totally agree. And if you have questions you'd like us to tackle on the next blog talk, you've got a couple of options of how you can reach us. You can actually send your questions to me via email. I'm marley@choppedcon.com. Or you can also go to Twitter. It's just @choppedcon and send me a question that way. Trevor, how can people send questions your way?
Well, they can go to theblogvillage.com and they can use the contact form there, or it's Trevor@theblogvillage.com, or they can go to showmetheyummy.com and use the contact page there. Any place. We're always looking for questions that we can help people out with. I love it. Well, this has been so much fun. I really had a good time talking with you today, Trevor. This was awesome. I can't wait until the next time. Me too. Oh, and what's the schedule? We're going to do this once a month? That's what I'm thinking. What do you think? Yeah, I think it's great. So we'll be back next month. Yeah, right around Thanksgiving. I love it. Ooh. An excellent special Thanksgiving episode. Excellent. Thanks, Trevor. Of course.